everybody, and welcome to another episode of Small Business Success Talk. I am your host, Christy Smallwood, and very, very happy to bring you a new guest that is becoming one of my favorites so far of the conversations. I have a lot of favorites. So, like, if I were to put together a top 10, that might be a thing I do. There's pieces and parts of all of these conversations that I'm like, man, that was so good. We should just like do a compilation of these things. Probably need to get some help on that one because that's a lot of work, but it's highly valuable, honestly, with all of these, man, the best practices and the things you learn about all of these business owners and their challenges and how they've overcome them. It's what a lot of this small business success talk show is for and about is you, the small business person, like how to get better at being you within the marketplace as a business, as an owner, as a passionate person that's doing what you're doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't do a shout out to my sponsor partner, which is the Chamber of St. Matthews, because a chamber is typically full of people just like you who are out there trying to make it in the world. And small business is a huge portion. Like we if we were to really band together, um the world would completely change if small business knew the power that it really had. And so I want to bring that to the forefront by spotlighting small businesses. And my guest today is no exception to this amazing power behind having a small business and having the passion that you put into it. Absolutely adore Jennifer Bryan. Jennifer is with Make and Muddle. That is Make, M-A-K-E, and Muddle, M-U-D-D-L-E, Make and Muddle. So in case I wasn't saying it like enunciating correctly. And Make and Muddle is a cocktail company. So cocktail mixers. She has a long history in the hospitality business, catering. Has done mixology. She's done events, luxury events, intimate gatherings. She does upscale kind of background in experiences. Like, how do you experience moments together with the environment around you? Well, that has turned into her becoming a cocktail evangelist, as well as one of the things that stood out to me was an executive bourbon steward. So she's actually been trained on all of the intricacies of what makes bourbon bourbon and also how to teach others the same thing. So she's not there for a specific distillery, but she's able to bring like how to do a tasting very officially to a group. And that's one of the things that I've always really wanted to do secretly. I want to be that person that can walk somebody through the nuances of the flavors of bourbon and how it lands on your tongue and what shows up first, like all of the intricacies of the drink itself. Now, the nice thing about this conversation is, yes, we're going to get to learn a lot about cocktails and the background of that, but we're going to dive pretty good into, yeah, how do you show up in your business and how do you set yourself apart and all the things that you want to do and what you've learned along the way and leveling up. And like, there's so much great stuff out of this conversation today. I just really, really adore Jennifer. And I so cannot wait to keep in touch with her as her business progresses. Let me introduce you to my guest, Jennifer Bryan with Make and Muddle. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being my guest on this show. I have, like I said, in the proverbial green room, been very excited to get to know more about your business and to meet you because quite frankly, you're just so stinking adorable on top of what you do. And Bertie's like party of one because like you said, anybody who's bringing the cocktails to the room is bringing the party. So tell me a little bit more about you, your origin story, like what's your background that you got to where you are?
Awesome. Christy, thank you so much for having me on today. When the opportunity arose to do this podcast, I'm like, yes, can we please talk about small business things, especially if we have women involved with them? That's my favorite thing to do. So Make and Muddle was founded. I co-founded Make and Muddle about 5 years ago. And I've been in the hospitality industry for all of my life. I had a luxury catering business decades ago, and then that morphed into an event business because what I really like to do was set a table. And catering is the hardest work I've ever known. So
Yeah, yeah.
I moved into the event planning, area of it, which was so fun, working with brides, working with corporate folks, really putting beautiful events together. And that was a ton of fun. And then I started to write a cocktail cookbook, and was kind of stuck in the middle of the writing, and ended up asking a friend for some inspiration and some help, and the Make Muddle was kind of born of that. And when the company was born, it was this omni cocktail business that did everything. I'm an executive bourbon steward. Bourbon is my first love in the world. I mean,
Okay,
aside
hang
from
on.
family,
Executive bourbon steward. I need to know what is that?
So, Stave and Thief is a society here in Louisville, Kentucky. We are the bourbon epicenter of the world. We make 95% of the world's bourbon and 100% of the world's best bourbon. So, this is where we are. And I really loved doing tastings, and I loved talking with folks about bourbon. And then I just decided that I maybe needed a little more training, and I needed maybe some letters behind my name of some sort, that, could give me some credentials when I was, selling tastings to folks. So I went and became an executive bourbon steward, and it's a fantastic program, and it's very distillery neutral. So there's not a lot of proprietary anything. It's just, these are the rules of bourbon. And there are, in fact, federal guidelines for bourbon. And it was just really great to get the nuts and bolts of distilling and see what all of that was about. So so it was, so that tied into the cocktail business, of course, to do tastings and menu planning for folks. And then it was about, we were doing cocktail parties then, and we were in menu design for restaurants and bars. And then what happened was that I saw that there was such a need for really high quality, intensely flavored cocktail mixers that were not a watered down sugar bomb or something that was like a one trick pony, So
Right.
there are gorgeous mixers on the market, but they only do one thing. So if you want an old fashioned, it's going to do an old fashioned for you. And I really wanted the mixers to be flexible. I wanted them to be able to do all spirits with them. I wanted them to be able to do cocktails and mocktails, because, I feel like there's a seat at the table for everybody. So, that was how it was born.
So, okay, I'm loving where this is going because I love everything you said about having a mixer that's flexible. Because it's not like I haven't tried my fair share around here. And I even had started a show of cocktails and conversations. Like, bring your favorite cocktail and let's just have a conversation about life.
Mhm.
Um, but it's hard, like, as you also have mixologists in your background.
Mhm.
And as a mixologist, you guys make everything look so simple. But when I try it at home, it
Right?
doesn't go the same.
No, it does not. It does not. And honestly, that was the genesis of the mixers. Was you can cocktail. Like, it doesn't have to be 45 ingredients to make a delicious craft cocktail from your own home. So when I started to do the design, our flagship syrup is our 7 syrup, which is 7 different spices and 3 different sugars. And it started as a pumpkin spice liqueur recipe because,
Let me guess.
I
And you
love
love
some
it in
pumpkin
the
spice. I
fall.
mean, okay, who doesn't want pumpkin spice? Okay, it's delicious. That's why people like it, Christy. I don't know if you knew that or not. Um, so when I did the recipe, it went through so many iterations, and then I finally figured out it didn't want any liquor in it. It just wanted to be a syrup. And I then figured out that it wanted to be a syrup that had a 2-day steep on it, because I wanted it to have this intense depth of flavor, but you didn't have to use a lot of it to get that flavor. Like, I wanted it to be a really balanced cocktail. And I also figured out that at that time, one of the founding principles of the business is about connection. It's about the really good things that happen over a good pour, no matter what that good pour is, whether it's got alcohol in it, whether it's just a spirit, whatever that is. There's a moment that happens where we slow down and we have a conversation and we ask each other about our days and those kinds of things. So when the mixer came about, we wanted it to be special. We wanted it to be something that was delicious and was also easy enough that you could have it on a Tuesday night if you wanted to, because it wasn't really deep. And you can also, control your alcohol, the amount of alcohol in the cocktails with those mixers, which is also a benefit on a Tuesday night, that looks different than a cocktail on a Friday night, maybe.
All I'm picturing right now. So there was Miracle on 34th Street, all of the 50s, TV shows, movies, even Bewitched. Like it was either the wife or the wife would have it ready for the husband. They would have their end of day, like the husband would get
That's
home,
right.
end of day martini
That's right.
or, whatever kind of drink. And it was typically either before or after dinner with the
Mhm.
cigars, like that has just been a thing for,
Mhm.
oh, d- thousands of generations, probably. This is not anything brand new. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So maybe I am not an aficionado. I'm a very new at this, but I love that you said like something about deep flavor
Mhm.
because there are times I love the idea of the flexibility because there are times that I want the flavor, but I don't want the alcohol. Like
Mhm.
I love me a good, um, I love a good mojito,
Oh yeah.
but right, but I don't want to get schnockered or anything. I just like minty. Like I want the minty
Mhm.
tart thing, and I'm like, but I don't want lemonade. So it's like, what do I do? And
That's right.
having some sort of option to be able to get the drink without the drink, so
Mhm.
to
That's
speak.
right.
And I do have friends who are like, I are are recovering alcoholics. Like, what do you do in those
Mhm.
situations to be able to include them? I love
That's
this
right.
idea. Congratulations.
Thank you
So
so much. Yeah. No, and it is that was another thing too. I mean, my husband's, been in recovery for 20 years. So having something that's not a soda for, for him at an event or at anything. I mean, whatever the reason is that people are not imbibing. Um,
exactly.
they still it's still inclusive, I mean, we're still the connection is what it's about. You talked about the 50s and that ritual is a transition that we make. It's the transition that we make from our daily work lives into our evening home lives, and marking that transition through a movement of some sort, a ritual of some sort. It signals to us that it is time to put some things down, right? And that became
Yeah.
even more important when the pandemic hit and we were all working from home. There was no separation from work and home anymore. It was
Oh,
just
that's
this grind all day, every day. And it was the
mhm.
grind of the kids online. And it was it was just online technology all day long for hours and hours. And
Yeah, you're
nobody could
right.
go
No
anywhere.
separation. No separation. And a lot
So,
of small business owners still work from home.
oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm thinking of myself. I'm like, oh yeah, there's really no strong separation of the day here.
Right. It was interesting. I heard this quote this week. It was so good. I meditate every day and journal and those kinds of things, and because I would be scattered if I didn't. But the meditation I was listening to said that when we ritual is about connecting our spirit with our self, our actual moving through the world self. That's what ritual is about. It's about connecting the parts of ourself that are separate at that point. So I loved that idea of, oh man, that's really good. Like to leave the day, I'm going to leave the day, that ritual of, oh, I'm reconnecting with myself and my family and who I am and who and how I want to move through the world and those kinds of things, as opposed to, I'm a boss and I'm, hustling all day every day.
I love I love that perspective. And it's something we don't talk enough about is having the a ritual that transitions from one portion of the day to another portion and not just like dropping off the crap at the end of the island over here and walking
That's
into
right.
another part of the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's having a ritual, a designated thing that you do that signifies 'twas a good day and
That's
now
right.
to a good evening. Like,
That's exactly right.
love that idea. Well, and I love the idea of going out with friends. Like,
Hmm.
I network a lot, typical networking events that
Hmm.
happen in the evening. That's exactly what we do is we
Hmm.
grab that thing that we have in our hand, whether it be, in the morning it's all coffee, but in the evening we just have that one, like I will grab one drink and I
Hmm.
am for 2 hours I have that same drink and talk because I talk to people probably more than I suck down any sort of liquid. But it's the thing of having that and chit-chatting while you're at it. It's that I love ritual and connection. Who
Hmm.
knew that cocktails could be so meaningful?
Well, I did. I knew how that's because when honestly, when the company was founded, it was like, okay, are we just selling cocktails? Why are we doing this? It's that question of, yeah, you can do it, but should you? So when it's about when we really dug into, what is this about? What is it about cocktails that's so good? What is it about legacy spirits that we're attracted to? What is it? What is this really about? And why are we putting it into the world? Why is this something that needs to be perpetuated? So that's when, I really dug into what it was about. And it's, alcohol's delicious, but it's not about the alcohol. It's about the lifestyle and the moments that it creates when we're able to do those things. So, yeah.
So let me ask, because now you're speaking my language. So what process did you go through to have that conversation with yourself to define it?
Okay. So my background is in theater and design. That was what my degrees were in. So the process of design is one that I absolutely love and just lights my brain up. So when you start thinking, I've had a lot of collaborations over the years where designers ask me very specific questions about how you want things to feel, what's the vibe, why are we doing this, what is the message, how do we get clarity in that, all of those really good questions, where you have to start asking the hard things, right? That's what that is. And then you're able to gain clarity about that. So the questions were, what is this company about and why am I doing it and should I do it? And how do I create that same level of connection and that same level of collaboration with people, for people in their homes? How do I make that accessible for people? Because it's awesome, there's so much slick marketing that goes with, the liquor industry and cocktail industry and all of those things. And it is lifestyle that we're selling, but beyond a lifestyle of this is what it looks like, I want it to be, this is what it feels like to have connection with people. This is what it feels like to not have to be in your kitchen all night and just to be with your guests because you love them and you want to spend time with them, and you can have a 3-ingredient cocktail that you batch for the whole night. Nobody has to be at the bar anymore. But it's that, and it elevates the experience, right? When we have delicious things, it elevates an experience. It makes it sparkle a little brighter, conversations flow a little easier. It's fun. It's fun stuff. It's a really fun place to rest your mind, to look forward to, something to look forward to.
Did you have to put yourself into like a certain environment, or did you just sit down at your desk and say, here's what I'm going to think about?
No, really, it was just I'm a big journaler and have a great business coach that I've worked with for years. And, she asks me harder questions than my therapist does. So
Yeah, we
I'm
tend to do
familiar
that.
with asking those questions and really thinking about them and seeing how that goes. My desk is a great place to do that. Being in the kitchen is a great place to do that. Also, there was this, we all have this grind mindset all the time. We're on the hustle, right? We're always working. We're work, work, work. I got to get stuff done. And then I saw this Willa Cather quote, she's a playwright and a writer. And she said, the higher the activity, the lower the productivity. And I was like, oh, that's uncomfortable. because I feel like answers come from the hustle, right? But when I'm in my kitchen and I'm just moving or going through movements, or I'm cooking breakfast or I'm cooking dinner or I'm making a cocktail and my mind goes quiet, inspiration happens in those moments, right? And it's you're having a conversation with a friend or you're just having a down moment and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what would be good? What would be good with that is X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden, a new syrup is born. So yeah, those down moments are important to creative process for sure.
So is that kind of like being fully present in the moment, would you
Oh my
say?
gosh, Chrissy, it totally is. That's exactly what. Yes, yes, it is. I see a theme. I see a theme.
It's one of the things that we hear about, but we don't really know how to do that. How do you
Mhm.
get still enough to hear, I am a Jesus follower. I believe in God and I believe in that still small voice. But if I don't get quiet, I can't hear
That's
the
right.
whisper.
Mhm.
It's like, how in the world do you get quiet? So I love to hear your process of how you got to be that fully present in the moment, to just be there, to let inspiration come to you instead of hustling to try to find it. Because,
Mhm.
that's the other thing that I work with my clients on, is that we don't have to go out and find it. Like, do the
That's
thing
right.
necessary and it's going to come to you because you're already in
Yes.
momentum.
That's right. Yes. In flow. I love it. Yes.
Yes. So what are so you mentioned really enjoying talking small business, especially if women are involved. So
Mhm.
what's been some big things over the years that you've seen, like, experienced yourself as a woman business owner? What has been some things that have been challenges for you?
Well, I mean, the reality is that it is a male dominated market, and fighting for a seat at the table is familiar to every woman I know, and struggling to be taken seriously, and the patterns that we develop to move through a man's world and try to navigate that are always very interesting conversations, I think. Um, I think that the biggest challenge, though, in all sincerity, has been myself. We're our own worst enemies all the time, and getting out of my own way has been, a challenge. And it's a process, and we continue to do that. But um, you know, women are. My business coach tells me, women have circular power. We share power. We are collaborative. That's what we do. We're not a hierarchy of power. We're shared power. And any time I'm with women, I just feel so supported in that way. And I wish that if I could go back and tell myself, my 20-year-old self, something, I would have whispered in her ear and said, "Find the baddest bitches in the room and and go to that room all the time." Because that's where you need to be.
I want to be one of those.
Absolutely. We all do.
I say that as my screensaver over on the other side of the room pops up this picture from my old days in radio. And so I used to be at Light 106.9 here in town, and it was
Oh,
the time of Tickle Me Elmo,
oh my gosh.
right?
I
So
remember that.
if I were to go back to tell that girl anything,
Go by all of them.
yes,
Right.
that was definitely that time. There were so many things that my younger self had no clue how to manage and how to get into. I still remember, and this was, after that moment, I worked at KFC for a time, and it was towards the end of my time at KFC when our corporate attorney had asked me at a dinner. She had talked about becoming a junior partner, and her
Mhm.
mentor was a partner in the firm. and she just went on and on and on about having the mentor and how
Mhm.
big of a deal that was for her. And she looked at me and she made the assumption that my current boss at the time was my mentor. And I was like, no, not, no, he's never done anything like that for me. And she's like, well, do you have a mentor? And I said, no, I don't even know what that is. Like, and I
Mhm.
was pushing 30 years old, at least
Mhm.
30, had no idea what a mentor was at that
Mhm.
stage. And she's like, you need to get you a mentor. Well, I didn't even know, like, didn't know what it was, didn't know how to get that. And, I had since after that left KOC because they give me something else to go do with my life. Like, get out.
Right.
But
Right.
it stuck with me that I realized at that moment, I was like, I don't have it, I guess in
Mhm.
the olden days, I could have been sponsored into something or had the mentor or whatever. Like all of that, I didn't have somebody ahead of me saying, come on,
Mhm.
I got you, putting me under their wing,
That's right.
pulling me with them. I didn't have any of that. So the fact that I'm as far as I am, when you talk
Mhm.
about fighting for a seat at the table, I look back and I'm like, I just made my own table. I kind of just
Yeah,
said,
that's
fuck it. I don't
right.
have time to fight with
That's
you. I got
exactly
things.
right. And that was what we were taught was competition, right? Part of
Mhm.
the growing up in the patriarchy, we know better, so we do better. But back in the day, we were taught that we were competition for each other, that we weren't, supposed to be sources of support. And really finding a group of women that were um, all about the collective was, you know, I don't have a woman in my circle that doesn't say, who needs help and how can we mentor? How can we, that and that's the difference. I think it's always about the group. It's about the collaborative. It's about, how we a lifting tide raises all boats. So
Absolutely. I just talked to another guest about that same concept. And it just to me makes total sense.
of course it does. Of course it does.
Not sure why this is so hard. Now, do I get stuck in the trap of my own competition and looking and seeing out there that my competition looks to be ahead of me and doing all these great things while I'm sitting here stuck, exhausted, like the exhausted pigeon on the couch at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Like, of
Right.
course, I get stuck in the mental trap of things. But
Mm-hmm.
realistically, the National Speaker Association has a motto about make the pie bigger.
Yeah.
So like there's
Yeah.
enough to go around, just make more
That's
cocktails. Like
exactly right. That's exactly right. Which is also, I think, it's so easy to be down on ourselves because I mean, we know we are our own worst critics 100% of the time. So it's really easy to say, if I just done a little more, maybe I would be a little farther than I am right now. But to really to sit in that and be able to say, if we're making the pie bigger, there's no competition. There really isn't. It's just you are doing you and I am doing me, and nobody, we may be doing similar things in a field, but we're not doing, you can't be me and I can't be you. So
you
it's
know.
make the pie bigger because it's going to be awesome when we're all there.
Okay, so speaking of making the pie bigger, where do you see Make a Muddle going? Like what's happening for you now?
Well, let's see here. I have always wanted from the beginning for this to be a global brand. That's what I have always wanted because I think that cocktails are a shortcut to connection. I really believe that. I believe it. It just pushes you into a moment that you would not do normally. So I also have traveled. I love to travel. It's a true passion of mine, and I have traveled several places over the world. And there are some countries that could use some help with cocktails. We've got some wonderful wine countries, but they are not cocktail countries. So that would be fun, to be worldwide. But no, definitely, we've always wanted to be a global brand, and part of the beauty we have a partnership right now with Longer Burger Baskets, which is very exciting, and they are a direct to consumer company. So the beauty of a direct to consumer company is that they're not going to be in a store anywhere. And it used to be, that like Pampered Chef or Tupperware, it was sold by in-home consultants, right? They're now called stylists.
Stylists, okay.
But they really flipped the industry and said, we're not going to do a 30-second video that you've been trained is what everybody should be doing. We're going to do a 6-minute video, and we're going to talk to you in your home about why this is a great brand and why it's going to enhance your life and the experiences in your home, because we're selling really good stuff. But also it's about the connection. It's about the gathering. It's about, the things. So that was a really good fit for us. But I think that model is one that we really are drawn to and are going to utilize moving forward. So we're very excited to be partnered with Longaberger, though. And it is not your mama's Longaberger, let me tell you that. My mom still has to this day Longaberger baskets, picnic basket, pie basket. We talked before in the green room.
Yeah, on the stairs.
That's right. That's right. My mother on Monday night showed up to Halloween with cookies in her Longaberger basket. I was like, that's right. They are truly a lifestyle brand now, though. It's not just baskets. It's, food, and they have a wine label and all sorts of amazing things. Yeah, they really do. So it's really, we're really honored to be included as a friend of theirs and featured on their website for the season.
I mean, aren't they already they're a global company, aren't they?
They are a global company. Yes, Ooh. They are. I know.
What do you know?
Well, I wonder what could happen here. Yeah, it's been fun though. And it's always exciting to level up and the challenges that brings, the growth mindset. To be in a growth mindset is always helpful, but you have to have it to be in small business as an entrepreneur, because you are constantly going to come up against challenges all the time. And, my business coach, I can remember calling her the first time I called her crying, just overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. And I just feel like I'm an idiot and I'm never going to be able to, that.
She's like, I still have those conversations, and I am a business coach.
She said, I'm going to tell you something. When you have that feeling, she's like, I want you to remember this feeling, because the next time you have it, you're going to move through it quicker. She said, when you have that feeling of overwhelm, you have exhausted all of your current resources, and it's time to get more resources. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to keep learning things. I don't know about that. That's uncomfortable. I don't, but no, it has been, there are always challenges every time we level up, and it's very exciting. And I love how it just keeps my brain lit up all the time and thinking about the possibilities and, open to all the collaborations. It's exciting stuff.
I had a friend before that she would always say, new level, new devil.
Ooh, that is so good. Yes, that's right.
There's always new things. Like, okay, wait. And there's sometimes whenever I level up, my leveling up has been coming faster, which is great. But there are times I can recognize it coming. I'm like, hang on, I just need a moment before I take on that.
Just a pause. Gather my thoughts.
Let me recharge a little bit. Now I can go forward. Yes. But hey, I'm doing so well. I recognize that, and I can help others recognize it in themselves too. Because it is a thing. It's a thing. You can't run on fume. You cannot hustle on fumes. You just cannot. It's not sustainable. Something within you will break, whether it be mentally, emotionally, phphysically, something's gonna break. And it's just easier to maintain a well-oiled machine than it is to fix it.
And isn't that really what self-care is about? Self-care is not just about bubble baths and having a cocktail with the girls. It's actually about knowing what your boundaries are and holding them. I don't know, that's crazy talk.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know, that's bizarre. We'll move on. Just move on. Nobody wants to talk about that.
So I do want to ask, whatever happened to that cocktail cookbook, cocktail recipe book?
Well, I signed a publishing contract, and we will have a new cookbook in released of Derby of 24. That's the release date
Nice.
tentatively right now. So yeah, that's been just a dream come true to be able to get this cookbook published, and I'm just thrilled, so excited, and it just lights up all the sectors of my brain. The design part, can we please talk about font? Oh my gosh, yes. I just want to talk. Can we talk about the gloss level on the page? That makes me so happy. So yeah, I'm very, very excited and thankful and so humbled that it's actually going to come into the world. So yeah,
I mean, I'm right there with you. A good font can make all the difference.
it does. It really does.
There are some things that, let's not nerd out about that because then my listeners will be like, what the hell is going on now?
Well, we started talking about cocktails, but we ended up talking about paper. I don't
Welcome to Small Business Success Talk.
That's
That's how
exactly
we
right.
roll.
That's right. Yes.
So I see in your background, is that a live background? That's
It is a live background. That is part of my collection. Yes.
so
There
when
are
you say
shelves and shelves. When you're in the business, you got to have a lot of bottles.
that is a lot of bottles.
It
So
is.
what would be one of your favorite go-to cocktails?
My favorite cocktail of all time is a Manhattan. I just think it's a perfect cocktail, and I like my Manhattans with half rye whiskey and half bourbon. I think that it makes you get that beautiful vanilla burnt sugar beginning of bourbon that's so amazing, but then the rye whiskey comes up on the end and just kind of cleans it up. So it's a tighter cocktail than if it were just made with bourbon. I also love a black Manhattan made with Amaro instead of vermouth, or half and half of either of those. That's my number one because there is elegance and simplicity. And I love how simple and elegant old fashions are the same way. They're just a classic cocktail for a reason. They stand the test of time because they're real good.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had a Manhattan.
Oh, Christy, come on now. We're gonna fix that. I'm gonna make you a Manhattan. That's gonna happen. So
Okay, I'll take you up on that offer. I know I've had old fashions, but
mhm.
I've not had a Manhattan. Why have I not had a Manhattan? I don't know.
They're typically old fashions are on the menu, more than a Manhattan is. So and they were traditionally made with rye whiskey. They're primarily bourbon in bourbon country. But yeah, they're amazing. I love a good vermouth
Okay.
too. So
So what's been any good experience stories? What's been some of your fun times of since you've been doing
oh,
this?
well, let's see here. I have had so many delicious cocktail experiences. Some of them, let's see here. One of my most memorable ones was that I was able to do a cocktail. They did a flight. They did a 3-course cocktail menu at the Aviary in Chicago, which is Alenia's the molecular gastronomy restaurant. Alenia, their cocktail bar is called the Aviary. And it was 3 courses, and they brought cocktails that were unbelievable. I had an old fashioned that came to the table that you had the cocktail itself came inside a sphere of ice, and
Oh,
you had a little hammer and you had to break the ice, and then the cocktail came out of the ice and you drank it like that. I had a cocktail that was a smoked cocktail that they brought in a bag, a sealed bag that was about this tall. It's about 3 feet tall. Cocktail was sitting at the bottom of the bag. There was smoke all in the bag. And then they sit the whole bag in front of you and snip the top of it off, and the smoke comes billowing out. And then there's this gorgeous cocktail in the bottom of it. And I was like, this is some next level shit, right? Never in my life.
wow.
I mean, it was an experience, and it was glorious. And I left, and I was so excited to come back to the kitchen and work. Like I was just like, this is, just how it blows the doors of your mind open, and to be so inspired by someone else's work. It's just like, oh my gosh, there's so many options here. Like, how do we experience a cocktail now? What is something that we can do? And then in my brain, it is not just how can we experience the cocktail, but how can I have people at home experience that cocktail that's accessible? How do I empower them to say, it's really just 3 ingredients, y'all. It's just these 3 ingredients. And then this is how you're going to express orange oil over the top of your cocktail. It's just, you're just going to roll it. I'm going to teach you how to do it. And it's going to be so much better when you go down and have that sip of that cocktail and all that orange essence hits you in the face. And it's so beautiful and bright. And then it completely changes the cocktail, right? So that was probably one of my very, very favorite experiences, was at the aviary.
That sounds amazing.
It was amazing. I've never experienced anything like it. Yeah. And then they had a little nosh with all of it. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm.
So that's the aviary in Cincy. So
in Chicago. Mm-hmm.
Chicago. Okay. Mm-hmm. Chicago. Yeah. Chicago's got some great experiences. So does Vegas. Vegas has got some really.
They do. Oh, I've had I think I probably had the most perfect martini I've ever had in my life in Vegas. Like it was so good. It was in the lobby of the Bellagio Hotel, and I was just like, oh, that's what that's supposed to taste like. No. Yeah, really amazing.
Okay, so there's some other questions that I tend to ask all of my guests, and one of which is like, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received? You've been sharing some great nuggets, but if you were to think through the piece of advice you've ever received.
Gosh, there are so many. I don't even know how to sift through all of them. Probably the best advice, no, it is, it really is if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You have to surround yourself with people who light your fire and fan the flame and challenge you, which is uncomfortable a lot of times, that are not just there to support you, but that are there to really push you to be more, to be better, to be stronger, to be whatever it is. Finding those rooms and surrounding yourself with those people, that was hands down the best advice I think I've ever had.
What influencers do you tend to gravitate to? For you, who influences you in your life? Like, it doesn't have to be a social media influencer. Let me also clarify, because now there's a title of being an influencer. No,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Professionally, like Marianne Eve Barnes she is just a badass, and
she's awesome.
I follow her career so closely. And I just think that she has been such an inspiration to follow your path. It's, like she's had so many amazing opportunities that started, she started at Brown-Forman. Most people have, like, that's the goal, right? And that's where she started. And then I think that from my perspective, I don't know her personally. I've met her before, but we're not friends or anything. But when I watch her, I think this is someone who really is staying true to who she is. She listens to her own best advice and follows it, and seems to be living her best life every time, she has a new project. I just am cheering for her, from wherever I am, because I think it's just all been such a triumph. So
yes, I got to meet her once too.
Yeah, were you able to interview her?
Well, not interview her yet. I had met her before they did. She was just getting started with It's Castle and Key. Is that right?
Castle and Key. Yeah.
They had just bought the place. So it wasn't running. It wasn't open. Mm-hmm. That's when I met her. And I was like, this woman is amazing. So I've got to see, early on, all of this growth happening. Met her a couple times over the years, and, she still acknowledges me. So
Right. I love it.
so who else were you going to mention?
Oh, well, just, my mom is probably my biggest influence in my life. I come from a long line of women who have great taste and were great cooks. And I just, I think my mom has impeccable taste, and like everything I've ever done has been a direct result of all of that exposure to really wonderful food and beautiful things, and an elevated sense of how to make a moment significant, no matter what it is. If it's a birthday or if it's a special event, that's great. But also just, the day to day, and how to take a moment and acknowledge that and be, I don't know, present in the moment.
Yeah, what a concept. Okay, so what advice would you give others in business in general?
Oh. Find someone that will ask you hard questions. You have to have mentor, if it's a mentor, if it's a friend, somebody that will be just brutally candid with you and ask you very hard questions. And not demand, but just, nobody can really demand of you, but, that challenges you to level up.
Like set your bar higher.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
sometimes setting the bar higher is a moment of realization that I probably shouldn't do that thing. Sometimes that's what the hard question is. Is this for me? Is this for me? And should I do it?
and that's so true. I've had people over the years who they're very excited about doing something, but they're kind of terrible at it.
Right. Yeah.
I know that's not the best way probably to say that, but it's one of those things that like while you may enjoy it, there is a difference between a hobby and a business. So maybe this should be your hobby and not
Mm-hmm.
a full-time business
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot more to business than just doing the thing you love in the business.
Oh
There's
man, isn't that the hardest lesson? I mean, I have learned more in the last 4 years about running a business than I ever wanted to. It is so much. It is so much. Just and trying to prioritize those things, like how I have finite resources, and that's resources can be time or money or people or whatever it is, but figuring out how to allocate that, how to allocate yourself to the business and prioritize those things is such a challenge.
yes, and there's new challenges all the time. You get new things coming in or I myself learned a lot of new things this year separating into two businesses so that I could focus for my specific people within those businesses. And that has been because then I have to shift in the community that Christy owns multiple businesses. I'm not just this
Mm-hmm.
one thing anymore. I'm over all of these things now. And even having that
Mm-hmm.
personal branding shift over while I'm trying to not only get these two businesses stable, which they are, go me, but that
Yay.
now each brand deserves their own time and
That's right.
attention and growth patterns and all of this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You're right. It's like, oh my God, what?
I need people.
Yep.
That's a common theme. I need people. I need a team.
That is definitely the hot topic lately, and not just for me, but like every business owner I know, we have been discussing the team aspect, employees, like how to find the best ones, how to find
Mm-hmm.
them in general, how to get them to actually want to stay.
Right.
So,
We
the
should
world
have
is
more conversations about that after we're done here,
I was gonna say that's a whole nother podcast waiting to happen.
isn't it?
Awesome. So one last question for you, Jennifer.
Okay.
What does success mean to you?
Oh, success for me It's a couple fold. Number one, I'm a firm believer that I can have my cake and eat it too. So I do not live to work. I want as much time to live as I devote to my business. I am that success for me is that I'm able to do both of those things. And there will always be a give and take. Sometimes the business is going to require more, sometimes personal life requires more. That's the first thing. The second piece of success for me is that I am able to empower more women in business, that I am able to support them and connect them and give them resources, whatever those resources may be. I am passionate about empowering women in business. So it will, definitely, that will be success as well for me to be able to devote more resources to that.
Nice. Well, Jennifer, I appreciate you so much. This has been a fun conversation.
It's been so good. I owe you a Manhattan. So let's get it on the calendar.
Off to our green room.
That's
Thank you
right.
so much for this episode.
That's
I'll have you back
right.
eventually because I want to know how
That
that
sounds
cookbook
good.
turns out. So
All right. Thank you so much. I
thank
appreciate it.
you.
Thanks, Christy. Cheers.
I'm totally taking her up on that whole Manhattan offer because I don't think I have had a Manhattan. And I really want a Manhattan now. Now I'm not going to run right off to make one because I don't even know where to start myself. But now I know where to go to get a cocktail mixer from Jennifer Make Muddle. All the information is going to be included in the show notes. So how to find them is going to be very simple. It's go to makeandmuddle.com and you can find all of the things there. And like you said, they just launched with Longaberger. So if you are familiar with that direct to consumer outlet, you can find all of their stuff through Longaberger as well. Some things that really stood out for me is that cocktails are a shortcut to connection. We touched a little bit on like when I go out and network, I typically have a drink in my hand. Sometimes it's just plain old water. Sometimes it's coffee, like I said, coffee in the morning, or when you have the open networking typically in the afternoon. I gravitate to a shot of bourbon with a chunk of ice. That's it. I just want one ice cube in it. Or sometimes, depending on the day, I'll do a double straight up. Neat. Just don't mess around. But those are few and far between on those days. But I typically just like being able to have that sip, and it gives me something additional to talk about. Sometimes in the room, you have people who are uncomfortable starting conversations. Maybe the introverts or it's their first time there. So having something in my hand already allows me to say, hey, would you like a drink? We can get you hooked up. Or they may have something in their hands and like, ooh, what did you choose to drink this evening? Like it can also be a conversation starter. So I don't, and let me also disclaimer all of this conversation. I do not encourage people to go out and drink until they get drunk all the damn time. That's just not what this conversation's been about. Hopefully, that's not what you took away from it either. I just want to make sure I'm covering my bases because I'm also sensitive to those people who are in recovery, who have tendencies to overdo it all the time, or they have addictive personalities. I know even for me, I have that in my family enough that I'm very aware of why I'm even taking the first sip. So every single time I know exactly why I'm doing it. Sometimes it's because I'm actually craving I'd like a pina colada. Like, oh, that sounds really good on a summer day kind of thing. Or something tangy and tart. Like for me, it is more about the flavor than the situation surrounding why I'm going to go for a drink. Now I'll joke about relaxing at the end of the day, or just drinking enough so I can sleep really good at night. But I have other methods for that now too. I have natural supplements and all that kind of stuff. However, so making sure that that disclaimer is in there is important to me at the moment. But I definitely encourage you, if you are trying to elevate your experiences and create conversation and connection with people, don't be afraid to to get creative with the cocktails. Grab one of these options from Make Muddle and get to it. Like, it's 3 ingredients all together. This sounds super easy. I can't wait to go get my own, because this is going to be awesome for a party that I'm getting ready to host. That may be what I choose to do my thing for, is I will have some little cocktail charcuteries. I don't know if that's a charcuterie board, but might be now. Anyway, I hope that you guys take away from this more than just about the cocktails, but that you also get somebody in your corner that is asking you the hard questions. I love that advice from her, because as you get to new levels in your own business, there are different questions to ask yourself. And then there are also some of the same questions. Is this really for me? Like, reevaluating at each stage. Are you still in it? Do you still need to be in it? Do you need to move to a different role within all of that? So there's so many great things that have come out of just this conversation with Jennifer. Highly encourage you to go back, listen again, share it with friends. That person that needs to ask you good questions, share it with them so that they can learn to ask you good questions, and just keep developing your own business. I would love for us to connect. So please follow, subscribe, make sure you get those notifications of when we launch new episodes, and honestly, just go out and be super in your own business. And tune in again next time for another episode of Small Business Success Talk.